Hello, everyone. Welcome to TALRadio. This is me, RJ Saankhya, hosting through the interview today. Have you ever looked into the eyes of an animal and felt a deep sense of empathy and compassion? So, animals are living beings who share the planet with us, and they deserve our respect and protection. But unfortunately, not all animals out there are treated with kindness and care, and most of them don't even get their basic needs fulfilled. And it's heart wrenching to see these innocent creatures suffer. And that's exactly where organizations like Red Rover come in to make a huge difference. So, Red Rover is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to improving the lives of animals in need. And their mission is to bring animals out of crisis and into care, and also to promote the human animal bond through their programs and services. And at the helm of Red Rover is the president and CEO, Nichole Forsyth, who has been with the organization since 2012. So, under her leadership, Red Rover has grown in scope and effectiveness, providing essential services such as emergency sheltering, disaster response, and also financial assistance to pet owners in need. And as you know, Tal Radio makes constant efforts to bring such great personalities to light. So that's why we have Nichole Forsyth on the show today. So let me welcome her. Hi, Nichole.
Thank you so much for having me on.
So I'd like to start our show with wanting to know what inspired you to pursue a career in animal welfare, and how did you come to be the president and CEO of Red Rover?
Yeah, I was one of those kids, who was always standing up for animals. My cats were outdoor cats at the time, and I didn't really know any better. And they were always catching wildlife, and I was always trying to save that wildlife. I was the kid saving the ants from the pool, the bumblebees from the pool. I just always had a great deal of empathy. And couldn't quite understand why everyone didn't feel the way I did when I was a child. So I think, from a really early age, I was just very fascinated by this idea of feeling for others, and the power of that, like the feeling of connection that I had with animals was so strong, and it's brought such a joy to my life that I want to make sure others have the ability to appreciate that sense of awe. And that strength of connection. And I also think that our relationship with animals can be a great learning lesson for our relationships with each other. And that's a lot of what I've brought to the organization is a program for developing empathy so that we really can learn from our relationships with our animals and how we could maybe have better relationships with people.
That is wonderful. I couldn't help but I kept smiling when you were saying about your childhood, how you saved the animals. I think that's really generous of you. So, can you tell us more about the programs and services that Red Rover offers to animals in need? And I'd especially like to know about those three main programs that I read about.
So we have Red Rover Responders, and that program is dedicated towards helping animals and people when they're in a crisis situation, especially natural disasters. So things like Hurricane Katrina, where people need to evacuate with their pets. Our volunteers and our staff provide emergency temporary sheltering for those animals when they need to evacuate. We also help set up temporary emergency shelters when a community is overwhelmed by an animal cruelty case, a seizure case. It could be something like hoarding or a puppy mill seizure. Anytime where a large number of animals is in need of temporary sheltering, we have almost 5,000 volunteers all over the US and Canada that are trained to go in and provide, special tender loving care to those animals in crisis and help them get ready for the next stage of their rescue, which is usually going into foster before they go into a new home, or they go back to they're reunited with their owners if it's a natural disaster. So then we have our Red Rover Relief Program, and that provides emergency veterinary care for low-income people who can't afford that emergency veterinary care. We provide grants for that veterinary services that go directly to the vet. And then we also help domestic violence survivors who, that same kind of phenomena where people won't leave their pets behind in a natural disaster. We know that people won't leave their pets behind if they're trying to escape an abuser. So we provide these grants called Safe Escape grants that help provide temporary boarding for those pets if a domestic violence survivor is trying to leave, as well as help domestic violence shelters develop pet programs so that the pets can leave with them and stay at the shelter or stay at a nearby animal shelter. And then we have our Red Rover Readers program, and that is the one that is dedicated towards helping children understand animal behavior and practice the steps of empathy. And we do that through a program that trains humane educators and teachers how to incorporate the program into their classrooms or their standard humane education programs, like an animal shelter. And then we also have Kind News Magazine, which is a magazine that extends the program, does a little bit with wildlife as well as companion animals, but has that same sort of philosophy of how can we inspire kids to want to learn about animals, build connections with them, and help their community as well.
That sounds like a really good job that you're doing out there. So I would like to know how Red Rover has evolved and grown over the years since it was founded in 1987. So how has the development been?
So we were founded with a totally different name called United Animal Nations in 1987, as you mentioned. And at that time, it was really about bringing together those within the animal welfare community to build more collaboration. And we, at that time, would help with any kind of situation where an animal was in crisis. It was international. We were helping orangutans. We were helping elephant poaching, horse slaughter, whaling, helping get primates out of research. So it was all over the place. In a good way, because I think that was just the nature of where we were as a sector at that time. But then over the years, we really narrowed in on that focus and found our niche, which really was as companion animals in crisis, in emergency type situations, which was a huge need and wasn't really widely understood or known about until Hurricane Katrina. So we were working on this before Katrina. There was some big flooding in Sacramento, California that we helped with and got a lot of recognition in California at that time, but it wasn't really until Hurricane Katrina where I think people really understood the importance of making sure people were planning for pets and disasters. So that became a big focus of ours, and we narrowed down the scope to companion animals. Eventually, we changed our name to Red Rover in 2011 to better capture our brand and what we were trying to do, the focus on really being on the lookout for animals in need. The color red really represents that sort of Red Cross kind of feel. A lot of people call us the Red Cross for animals. And so we wanted to kind of capture that spirit with the name Red Rover. And it's also helped us build a lot of corporate partnerships, which has helped us do our work. So we can talk more about that, I think, later.
Yeah, definitely. So where do you want to see Red Rover in the next 5 years? And what is your vision about expanding the organization?
One of our biggest goals right now is in this domestic violence and pet space, just because we recognize there's a huge need. And there's a very clear solution to helping both these people and animals that are in crisis, and that is making domestic violence shelters pet friendly. We know that people delay leaving an abuser. They go back to their abusers. Pets play a huge role in the power and control that is domestic violence. The closer someone's bond is with their pets, unfortunately, the more likely they will be used against them to get them to stay, come back, or just display power and control over them. And so it's really important that people who are experiencing, whether it be a physical or psychological abusive relationship, that they have the means to leave with their pets. And so, as I mentioned, we have lots of ways we do that, but the best, most sustainable method is to make the domestic violence shelters themselves pet friendly and to have rigorous pet programs. So regardless of the number of pets, the types of pets, those domestic violence shelters have the resources and the connections in their community to make sure there's an appropriate support network for them and their pets. So that's a big project that we have. And we have a goal that by the year 2025, we want to see 25% of domestic violence shelters become pet friendly. Right now it's 17%. And we've done an amazing job since we got involved in this program. When we were starting with just really tiny grants, it was at 3% of domestic violence shelters were pet friendly. Then it went up to 10, and now it's 17. So we're really excited to see that grow. And again, it just has such a potential to both help people and animals that are in crisis together. So that's a big focus of ours. And we're also continuing to look at ways, we're fairly unique for animal welfare because we're really looking at where animals and people are in crisis together. So because we're so focused on the human-animal bond, we recognize that human-animal bond benefits animals as well as people. And so we're looking for ways to develop our community programs, initiatives to, with a more of a social justice lens, to really look at where the most needed people are and where the most needed animals are. And often those things are intersected. So wherever people are in crisis, wherever people are suffering, we know the animals are suffering as well. So having that as a focus for ours and how we can develop better programs that address that is another focus of what we're doing, and an opportunity to grow and do some more community program work.
Wonderful. I really hope you reach to all those programs that you've planned for future. So, like you also mentioned, domestic violence. There are so many other incidents also that take place around the world about animal cruelty. So, what do you think is the cause of all this? And what is your opinion that, like, what can put a stop to all of this?
I think when we started the Red Rover Readers program, I was convinced that empathy was the answer. I was thinking, people just don't have the ability to practice empathy or to understand animals or to understand that they have the same emotions as people or similar emotions. And that if people just understood that they would be kinder to them. But the more I've learned about trauma and its impact on people, and when I say trauma, it trauma from a wide variety of sources, whether that's racism, systemic racism, how you were raised as a child, how natural disasters, pandemics, all of these different things that we experience as human beings impact us in a very profound way, especially when they happen in childhood. And so the more I learn about trauma and the more we're becoming a trauma-informed community and how we interact with our clients and volunteers and people we help, the more I feel like our education program needs to take that into account more and make sure that as we train our teachers and volunteers, that's part of it. Because I feel like if people aren't healing from their own trauma, it's really hard for them to be there for others. And people end up taking out their trauma, on others, whether that's animals or people. And I think domestic violence is a great example. We know there's a cycle of abuse. We know that the perpetrators of domestic violence, that came from somewhere. It doesn't just happen. It comes from society trauma. It comes from systemic racism. It comes from childhood trauma. It comes from drug use, when your parents are doing drugs and neglecting you. I mean, there's so many things that impact your trauma, your childhood, and that those, if left unhealed, they do impact how you treat others. And so trying to find ways to help, every community organization, every nonprofit, every system that's set up to support people, if we were more trauma informed, that might help build some more awareness and prevent some of this neglect and abuse. But I think it's a huge undertaking. So I think we're just playing one piece of it. But I think what's so powerful about the human-animal bond, and I talked to so many kids about this, they know what is different about their relationships with pets. And people are more their authentic selves with animals than they are with other people. A large percentage of people that we talk to say that. And if that's the case, what can we learn about our relationships with animals that helps us do that? And a lot of it is this sort of non-judgmentalness, right? Like we know animals aren't judging us. They're not being critical of us. They're basically treating us in a trauma-informed way. So I think we have a lot to learn about that. And, I hope that through our education programs, we can help children at a really early age think about that and explore that, and then gives them a way to practice that, not only with the animals in their lives, if they have animals in their home or animals they come across, but also with their friends. If they can practice some of that what does it mean when I break down the wall and I'm my authentic self and I'm not afraid and I show up non-judgmentally and what does it look like to do that? So that's part of what I hope to see in the future.
That's wonderful. And I really appreciate the point that you said. It's really valid that our trauma is projected on the vulnerable, the animal. So that's really a valid point. Now, coming to the next question, I'd like to listen to some success stories of Red Rover.
I think one of the ones that stands out the most in my mind for how unique it is, and I bring it up especially because I feel like other nonprofits, might benefit from the same idea. But we've developed a really amazing partnership with Purina through this Purple Leash project. And there's just been so much to gain. As we're a relatively small nonprofit for being a national organization. So when we teamed up with Purina, it really taught me how much more we can do with a large corporation that is dedicated to the cause, what that can do. Yeah. So we have bi-weekly meetings with Purina. We co-developed this Purple Leash Project campaign together. And, they have the marketing power to really get this campaign out there. And they've helped us raise so much more money, helped us bring more attention to this cause. More people understand the link between domestic violence and pets. They've put messages on their pet products and through events that they've done. They've had key influencers, talk about it on social media. They've had some big celebrities do media spots on this. So just way more people know about us because of Purina. And I think it's a unique corporate partnership because they're definitely doing this to enhance their brand. And they've got the metrics to show that it enhances their brand reputation. But they're also doing it because their employees, their staff really believe in it. And that's just such a great feeling to know that kind of a corporation can step up and really, really help a cause in a meaningful way. So I think it's a great success story. And we initially started with a 4-year partnership where they were giving us about $600,000 to support the safe housing grants, the domestic violence shelters to become pet friendly. But that has expanded into getting a lot of their brands involved, like Tidy Cats and Fancy Feast, and those brands have gotten involved as well. We've done legislation with them through a coalition called the Pause Act Coalition, where we support federal legislation for funding to make sure that domestic violence shelters have federal dollars to become pet friendly. It's just done so much for our organization and for the cause. So I think that's one of the success stories that really stands out in my mind as having the biggest impact on one of the biggest impacts on our organization over the long term.
That is wonderful. So also there seems to be a lot of fun events and workshops happening for the pets. So can you tell us more about it?
We love going to conferences. I think that's probably one of the best ways that we can get out to the audiences that we're trying to reach. So we will be at the Humane Society of the United States Animal Care Expo in April. We do a lot of virtual events. So for our Don't Forget the Pets workshop, that is the workshop that is for community members, domestic violence shelters, those in social services, homeless shelters, anyone who's trying to kind of provide that safety net when people are in crisis and they've got pets. We have these Don't Forget the Pets workshops that we do in partnership with Greater Good Charities Rescue Rebuild Program. And this website has all sorts of resources for domestic violence shelters that are trying to become pet friendly. And we offer virtual workshops, in-person workshops. So definitely something that if people want to learn more about it, they can go to don'tforgetthepets.org and check that out. We will also be launching a microsite soon called the 25by2025.org. And that's going to have a toolkit where, again, animal advocates, domestic violence shelters can get involved in this campaign to help make 25% of domestic violence shelters pet friendly. We also have free volunteer training. So always looking for new volunteers. The volunteers go and they can help with these Red Rover responders rescues, where it's the natural disaster sheltering. But we also have the community programs where people have maybe a little bit more time to kind of plan when they go do these volunteer opportunities, because there are things like helping the domestic violence shelter build their pet-friendly facilities, or they might be helping set up outdoor kenneling for dogs to get them off of chains, or helping with a animal care wellness clinic, vaccination clinic, going on to indigenous reservations to help with specific veterinary vaccination programs or spay-neuter programs. So lots of different opportunities that people can get involved with all over the country. And the training is free for that. So if people go to our website, redrover.org, they can learn more about how to participate in that.
That's great. So with so many responsibilities, there must be definitely something challenging, right? So what is the most challenging part of running an organization for animal welfare?
You know, it's interesting. I think when I first started, one of the biggest challenges felt like it was the animal welfare wasn't taken very seriously. But I really feel like that's changed. And in large part, perhaps the pandemic, because all of a sudden people were seeing animals in the background of videos, they're news reporters, all these different people, kids, and they're, kids in virtual classrooms. There was just more conversations around the value of that human animal connection. And it does feel like they're taken a little bit more seriously now. I don't feel like I get as much backlash, like, why are you talking about the animals when you should be talking about people? Even in natural disasters, it feels like it's understood now that how important animals are, that they're considered family members, and that it can slow down the human services if you don't consider the animals. So that feels like it's changed quite a bit. But that was definitely a challenge when I first started. But I do think, just for Red Rover, one of our biggest challenges is trying to be a national organization and be small. It's really hard to know where to focus your marketing, where to focus, how do you get people to know about you when you're so small, but yet so big, covering, which I think is why partnerships with Purina, things like that have really helped us, because almost like a bigger marketing budget, because it's their marketing budget, not ours. So that has really helped. I think there's still a little bit of that. Our animals is serious. There's so many things happening in the world. But again, I feel like all of that should be integrated. And Red Rover is because we're so small, like one of the benefits of being small is that we are really nimble and can be flexible and can adapt. So a lot of the work with social justice and our DEIB efforts, like we're really able to pivot quickly and have been and started brainstorming really early into like, okay, we now understand that animal welfare is very white, and that's a problem because we're not reaching everyone. We're not reaching the people we need to reach, and we need to do something about that. So we've really done a lot to figure out how could we integrate social justice into our work? Like, what does that look like? And I think we have some really, really powerful ideas to make that happen. And we're getting a lot of positive feedback for those efforts. So I'm excited to see where that takes us. I feel like it really has the potential to just reach new audiences and help animals and people in a totally, totally different way. So I'm excited to see where that goes.
So we are at the end of the interview now. And finally, for any listeners who are interested in learning about more about Red Rover, or potentially someone might be a donor, so where can they find more information, or how can they donate?
Definitely redrover.org. People can go right there, make donations from that website. We're always looking for monthly donors. That's a really great, sustainable way to donate to any organization, but especially Red Rover. And we're also on social media. So find us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram by searching for Red Rover org. That's our name on social media, but you can also find us on social media through our website. So sign up for email on our website. That way you'll be alerted to when there are, new events or new training opportunities, new promotions for campaigns, or just how you can help spread the word.
Wonderful. Wonderful, Nichole. So yeah, that's it for the interview, and thank you so much. It's been very engaging and insightful interview, and I'm really grateful that you actually took out time for us.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, and I also wish you all the luck for the upcoming events from Red Rover, and keep the good work going.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. So that was Nichole Forsyth, CEO of RedRover organization. And yeah, for more such insightful interviews, stay tuned to TAL Radio. And this is me, Saankhya, signing off for today. Take care, you all.